Hi, this is Erica Norton, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a fantastic family and real estate law firm in the Worcester area, and we are very fortunate to have her with us every week to discuss these issues. And today we're going to talk about something interesting and something that we really haven't touched on before. We're going to talk about uh, adults that are in a child's life that are not necessarily the parent and what kind of rights they have and how they can actually help the child that's in their care if they don't have rights. And so let's talk about this. Hey there, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So, when we talk about these other adults that are in children's lives, we're talking a lot about maybe grandparents or step parents or girlfriends and boyfriends, and they just happen to all live together. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's somebody that either has a familial relationship with the child or is a significant other's person um, that's involved with this child.
Okay, great. So, if you're involved with the child, like sometimes those people end up being a primary caregiver. Is that right?
Absolutely. And sometimes, they are really taking that role over, and sometimes it is in the form of a guardianship or something of that nature. But we're talking about before we even get to a formal court proceeding, what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are temporary orders in place, but what do we do? So let's say we were just talking about how sometimes bringing children to the doctor, depending on what the issue is, it can be a part-time job because, hey, we just had an ear infection that has been lingering since Thanksgiving, and now we're in the middle of January, and we've been on three different meds. We've gone to the doctor 6 times so far, and it's finally on its way out, thank God. But if I wasn't her mom, like what rights do I have to even bring the kid to the doctors and hear the diagnosis and the information about the child? Should I be kicked out of the room? I'm like, what? Tell us about this.
That's exactly it. So anyone can bring a child to any of these locations, but are you going to get any information? No. The answer is no, not unless you have the proper documentation. Because obviously HIPAA laws and everything else that goes with it. I can't even talk to you. Great. Who are you? Oh, your grandma? Okay, great. Paternal? They'll fill that out. They'll put that right in the form and then they'll go about their business. And so, we sent a prescription to this location. You have mom or dad go pick it up. Okay, what's the prescription for? You can have mom or dad pick it up. What did I get? Nothing. Okay, well, do we have to have a return date? They'll probably tell you if they need a return follow up. And you can probably book that. But that's about it. Like, you're not going to get any real information unless you have a couple things. I mean, obviously, any parent going to any, primary care or any of the doctors, you certainly can give that consent, and you'd have to give it in a written format specifically to that facility that says Jane Smith, who is maternal grandmother, has authority to talk to the doctors and to get information regarding Sally. Okay, great. Or you're going to need a legal document to deal with other issues. So you're going to have something to show them so that they can communicate with you.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So, what do you suggest? I mean, do you have to go to court to get the permission, or, how does that work?
You don't. There's actually a form that you can get. It's called the parental consent form. And it's essentially a form that gives the parents third party rights to do certain things. It could be, something simple like bringing them to the doctors, bringing them to the schools, picking them up from the schools. It could be something more involved that deals with all of the legal issues. So, again, you can make it as complex or as simple as you want, but that's a form that you can give to people so that they understand that this person has not final say, certainly never final say, but has the authority in place of you.
Now, we were chatting before this interview and you had mentioned power of attorney. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, is it common for people to need power of attorney for some of these simple acts?
It really depends on what you want. My answer is going to be no, but I've done power of attorneys where a grandparent has taken a child out of country, and we want to make sure that we have specific dates for return in and out, what countries they're going to, what the ramifications are. So that's when I'm going to really draft a power of attorney. But the parental consent form is really what you need for the day to day. So when you think outside the box and you really want to go, I need to give more than just what the parental consent form does, then that's really when you want to come up with a power of attorney and limit to what the scope is that you want. And it could be a very limited basis between, these 3 months. This is what's going to happen, or this particular day. So it can be as broad or as narrow as you need it to be.
I mean, that's very convenient then. I mean, it sounds like it really worked out well. And so that way, I mean, these people are not always the ones that are going to probably be doing that job. Um, Hopefully, the parents will step in, and some of these people come in and out of their lives. And so you need to have some flexibility where the children are concerned and the people that are caring for them. I mean, can you say like babysitters or like those people as well, or is it just really someone that's involved in the family?
I mean, it certainly can be whoever you want. I mean, I think, the issue is going to be when you have a divorced couple and, mom is allowing the babysitter and she's giving dad grief about something. Well, guess what? Dad's going to give you more grief about the babysitter because why does that person have more priority? So you certainly have to worry about what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. But, if you have a full-time nanny, well, then guess what? That makes complete sense versus a babysitter who might need it once a year. And again, that's probably only going to be for limited purpose of picking up at school. And obviously, school has their own forms for pickup and drop offs, and you can limit it on a particular day and particular time, or you can leave it as broad as you want. So certainly you have that discretion with certain things like the school pickup and drop offs. It's the other things, the early dismissals. I had somebody that keeps early dismissing somebody, or I'm going to let the child come in late and I'm going to say, well, it's a doctor's appointment, but not have a doctor's note. And it's, by my girlfriend that's bringing them in. That's really where it's going to come into play, that we really need to have something in writing.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, do you get these questions all the time?
I get them frequent enough that I thought this would be a good topic. It's certainly something that we don't think about until we need it. And then when we need it, we're like, oh my God, what do I do? And it really kind of puts people on edge because they don't know what to do. And it's not something that you can just do a quick Google search and say, what do I need to do? Like, how do I get this situation? All too often, people want to write up this one little, handwritten thing that doesn't make any sense. Or better yet, give them a text or an email. Well, I don't know that it's really coming from a parent. So, you have to worry about those concerns as a parent. And thankfully, people aren't, and doctors' offices and schools aren't taking that as face value. But you need to think about when you're going to need it. And unfortunately, it's usually a crisis situation that you do need it. And now you're scrambling.
So let me ask you this question. As a divorced woman, I am always very concerned with doing the right thing, obviously, but also I will ask you questions on like, hey, is this going to look bad in the court's eyes if, I have my mom watch my child or whatever it is for a specific event or, I mean, there's a lot of things where you want to be careful. And I would think that one of the things would be if someone's taking your kid to the doctors and it's not you, that would look bad to the court. I don't know, but it just feels like something I would be concerned with. Is that something to be concerned with or no?
It depends on the circumstances. There are times that, you know, you have both parents and they're single parents and they don't have the time and they can't take the time off from work. You know, they're not business owners themselves and they have a 9 to 5 job and their boss doesn't let them get vacation time, or they've used up all the vacation time because we've gone to, you know, 10 million ear infection appointments that we haven't had resolved. So those are the things that where you're going, do I lose my job to do it? Certainly the court isn't going to punish you for that particular thing. So it really depends on the circumstances. Is it something that you're just skirting your obligations as a parent? Is it because you have this job and you don't have the flexibility? Is it because, you know, God forbid you're in the hospital or you can't make it there or something like that? So we're really going to look at it on a case by case basis. And sometimes it's like, well, wait a minute. During our entire marriage, my grandmother always took our kids. Why would I not do so? Why would I do something different now? So we really got to look at again what has been the history and why.
I mean, and that makes a lot of sense, especially if it's something that they're used to doing on a regular basis. And it is a huge concern. Kids get sick and you've got to stay home from school. I swear to God, sometimes the the schools have the kids out of the school more than in. It's why is it that there's 2 half Wednesdays every month? And I'm like, it gets crazy. Oh my gosh, you have Friday off now? You don't look, I gotta look at the calendar because it's not a holiday, and I didn't expect that. So you gotta have some flexibility. Um, and I'm glad that the courts look at that because I've definitely lost money by having to do this, but what else are you gonna do? You can't have your kids sick and feeling bad. You gotta take them until they feel better and they find the problem, and sometimes it means you lose money. I don't think they really consider that when they're doing the divorce decree and figuring out where the money goes, because there's always a caregiver, and the person that's responsible for that the most, they lose money.
They do, and they certainly, I mean, that's something that again, if it becomes a habitual thing and it's happening all the time, and unfortunately your child has leukemia or something, well, then we're going to know we're going to have those issues, right? We're going to have to take out big blocks of time. And certainly the court can consider that, and the court can do an upward deviation if they need to. So they have the ability, but again, we don't know when we're in that situation until we're in that situation. So the court will look at it, but it's always going to be after the fact because we didn't know it existed.
And that makes sense. Is there anything else we should know about these special permissions before we go?
I think again the big thing is that they're out there. A lot of times, depending on what the form looks like, I'm gonna say get both parties' consent. You don't need the other party's consent. You don't need your spouse's consent. It's during your parenting time. I get it, but it makes life so much easier if you can get both parties to agree to this, because now we know that grandma is safe. We know that we're not going to have any issues with her. Let's go ahead and let them be on the list. They've always been on the list, not a problem. As long as mom and dad are the priorities for emergency contacts, great. Let this person be a backup. So really, think about it from a parent perspective. Who do you want that's going to be able to take care of your kid? And if it's not you or your spouse, there's going to be somebody else in the family that most likely is going to care about your child just as much as you are.
And that's always a good thing, right?
More love, the better.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, giving us this information. It's certainly not something that most people think about until they absolutely need it. And it's a great point that you just can't get information that you need unless you do have those special permissions. So now we have the information, and I hope that this makes everyone's life a little easier. If you do have other questions about a family matter or a real estate matter, please call Nicole Reeves Lavallee's office, because her and her team are fantastic. They give you the right strategies to get the results that are fair, and they're just great people too. So thank you so much for coming on today, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week.